I'll go ahead and get started then. My name is Shannon Miller. I am pretty new to homeschooling. I have 3 kids, and then because of the COVID pandemic, I thought very early last summer actually that I needed to consider options available. I work full-time, and last March I started working full-time from home. And I was trying to figure out what options I can do in order to be successful, not only in my career, but also trying to teach my kids. And I just, I didn't know how I could accomplish that goal. And then somehow I stumbled across Acellus. So if you were to have asked me over a year ago whether I would ever even consider being a homeschool mom, it would have been a hard no. But the world has changed, and now I can't see us ever going back to regular brick and mortar. So that said, I have 3 kids. One's in elementary, one's in middle school, and one is in high school. And Acellus has proven to be a very fantastic tool for our family. And they've all been successful using it. Okay, so before I get into talking about Acellus, I think it's important that I share with you all what Power Homeschool is. So when I first got started, I started really like a lot of moms do, going to Facebook, what are my options, and joining different homeschool groups on Facebook. And I kept hearing about Acellus, and I heard also about Power Homeschool, and I was completely left confused. So I wasn't sure which direction to go, thinking they were 2 different things. Before I get too far down the explanation of all of this, I want to just open up the opportunity. If you guys have questions as we go along in this process, just jump in. Feel free to take your mic off of mute and ask those questions of me. I'm happy to answer. I want to keep it really informal. That said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to share with you what Power Homeschool is. Okay. So, you should be able to see the Power Homeschool screen. The way that you get here, I'll just show you. Can you see my browser? Or are you seeing just the one page? Can anybody answer?
I can see your page and your arrow moving around it.
Okay. Let me see if this works. Okay, are you seeing the home page of Power Homeschool? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So you just type in Power Homeschool into your search engine and you'll get this. All of these pictures that you see on the back of their homepage, these are all Acellus videos. So Power Homeschool is really the go-between for homeschoolers, the go-between for us to get to Acellus. So because we serve as our children's teacher, we get to go at it from a different angle. Whereas if you were just to go to Acellus, they would try and sign you up for somebody else to do what it is that you plan on doing for your kid. Does that make sense? Okay. So what I like about this, and since I signed up, they've changed a little bit, but I want to show you some of the examples. So they have a host of classes. From up here was elementary to middle school to high school. You can also go to the different sample lessons, and you guys know your kids better than anybody, and you'll be able to say whether this is something that's going to work for you or not. There was another online program that we had looked at, and it was between, I think it was Time to Learn and Acellus, and my boys just learned from this style better than the Power, or I'm sorry, than from the Time to Learn. You have real people. These are, my kids come from the brick and mortar. They're used to that regular lecture style. So this really worked for them. I would encourage you to go through some of the classes and just get a sample. I'm not going to do that today though. You guys could do that. So you can see it brought us to the Acellus page. I'm going to go back here to Power Homeschool. If you want to sign up for it, you could subscribe, and that's how you get started. The billing, I'll show you how the billing works, which is really nice because every month in your inbox for your email, it's automatically billed, and you get a bill that shows up in your inbox and says, okay, you paid for your kids for this month. And then that's what you could use to submit it. I actually don't have that open. There you go. Just show you real quick what it looks like. So it breaks it all down. So it's super easy to submit to Family Partnership Charter School. So that's that. Okay. And I see we have a chat here. What doesn't make sense? Colleen, you have a question.
I'll just, oh, sorry. I was just going to say that she put that question up there right when you were talking about Power Homeschool and Acellus. So I thought it was related to that.
Okay. So the Power Homeschool, they're the folks who will send you your bill. They're the folks that you will go to ask questions. So I'll throw some other examples up here for you so you know. Okay. So one of the problems that I kept coming up against is I kept thinking to myself when I was trying to decide what homeschool program or what, like whether I wanted to use Acellus or some other online interface, I kept cutting out Power Homeschool. I just kept going to Acellus and calling them, and they're like, we can't help you. We teach lessons for schools. You have to go through your homeschool program. So I then got really confused, thinking I needed to contact Family Partnership, and Amy's like, I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about. So it's the Power Homeschool service. That's the people that you need to contact if you have any questions with respect to getting your kids signed up for a particular course, or if you lost your username and password. So I'm going to click on some of these resources. So here's, for example, the user guide. I go back to this pretty regularly because I forget, you know, if I leave something cold for a few months and now I have to re-sign my kids up for new classes for second semester, I have to remember, you know, how do I do that again? And so you would be able to go in here and look at the different user guides. So I'll walk through most of this for you. If you need to reset your gold key and PIN password, this is just your username and password in Acellus. I'll walk through that. Is that more clear? Like the difference between Power Homeschool and Acellus? This is just the go-between. So if I were to go to Acellus, I'm gonna just type in Acellus login. So you can see exactly what it is that I see when I sign in. And I'm gonna go to my parent gold key sign in. Now, when you get set up with this system, you'll receive an email from Power Homeschool that's going to have you set up with your username and password. It's pretty easy, it walks you through it. And then you'll create your own secondary gold PIN. This way your kids can't hack into your system. And then it'll log you in. So this is the what you will see for your kids as the parent teacher. Now what I do, because you know I have to sit in my home office and do my regular day job, I sit with my laptop next to me while I'm working. So then I'm able to monitor my kids' progress throughout the day. So this is my youngest son, Sawyer. He's in elementary, and this is what he's worked on today. Now I can tell whether he's on point or if he's signed out, which he signed out for today. If he's on point, this will show that he's in progress right here, which is pretty cool. He knows that he has completed all of the tasks that he needs to do because he gets a gold star for the day. Now this one, the elementary engineering, that's a class I just signed him up for so he can see if it's something he might be interested in for next semester. So he just kind of took a peek at it, but hasn't touched it today. So he looked at that yesterday. I'll just go through all of these very briefly so you can see, you know, what it is. So we already went through here, so you can select whichever student. Messages, so that is for, remember what I was telling you about how the Acellus teacher, so Acellus has teachers in the lower 48 who will teach kids up here in Alaska, but they don't go through family partnership charter school. So the message would be a secure space so that the teacher can email the student directly. My kids are upstairs, so I don't even use this. I just run upstairs and holler at them to get it back on task. Today's work, this is everything that he has worked on for the day. Each one of these lines here, like 432, 433, those are considered steps. Here's, this is just like a blog. I'm not even gonna open it. It's the Acellus blog. And then here are the scores. So you can see, again, he reached his goal for today. But if I want to print a report card because I need to get grades in, you would just click on that button, and that's what your report card will look like. And you could select the grading period. The syllabus is here. So we'll go into social studies. If you have questions, please ask. So you could see what has been done and then what is coming up. Now, the one complaint that I would have about Acellus is I cannot see what this video covers without watching the video myself through his login information. So I'm gonna click up here, and yeah, so I had logged in as him earlier just to prepare for this. So then here's what he sees. These are his classes that he has set up. I just clicked on social studies, and so he could see where he's at for the day. If he wants to, let's see. Okay, so you see it just kicked back to me because I'm logged in. So this is why it gets a little bit confusing. Because I'm logged in on a different tab, it automatically assumes that it's me logging in. See? So I'll just go back to Acellus. I'm gonna sign in as the student. Sawyer's name is already saved. So I'm going to sign in. And then we're back under as the student. Okay, so this is where he's at. So it'll go through the process. He'll watch a video, and then here's a little exit door up here on top right. And then he'll take a test or he'll do an activity. So we could go back here and see, I'm gonna go back to mine. I've got the Zoom screen up here at the top, sorry. There we go. I'll go back to mine and click on him, and then I could see what's next. So you could see, okay, he watches the video, he'll do some practice on the work. So I'm looking at math here. So he'll do some practice and it'll say, yep, you got that right, or nope, try again. So on this one, he did pretty good. He got 6.5 out of 7. And then he'll go through a unit review and then he'll do an exam. And so that's just kind of the steps for this portion. If you want to know, again, you could go back to the syllabus and you could take a look at what the pattern is exactly. So it goes here in order. Now, if your kid is having some, if your kiddo is having some struggles on something, what you could do is you go back to the student mode, then you could go to your manage account. And you know, say Sawyer was struggling with something, you could change it back to tutoring. And what that will do is allow him to go back to videos that he has already watched. So I'll show you. Oh, I must not have let it update.
We have a question in the chat box about whether you add the supplemental material, and if so, how that factors into the grade.
Okay, so supplemental information. I'll come back to where I was. So the supplemental information is found under special lessons. Because you are, let me go back. Oops. Because you're the teacher, you can have the conversation with your sponsor teacher and explain, okay, here's what they've worked on. I always provide my sponsor teacher with some samples, even though under this program, I'm not required to, because they do get that grade assigned to their work. So I wanted to show you his science. Here's one that we did. A lot of times I will print these off so you can see, you know, what it looks like. This is the student's print resource. Let me see if I open it. That's better. So you could see what it looks like. I feel like there's so much screen time that it's nice to have the print off version for them to look at. Then you could also do the teacher resource. So this can help you. This is pretty much identical, but it gives you the answer key to it. One of the things that we did when he was working on his plant project is we did some of the science projects associated with it. This was a lot of fun to do the celery and the food coloring. We did the little snippet of the plant and watched it grow its roots. And then now later on, and I didn't know how deep into the details they were going to go about the soils, but they did. And you know, just this month he planted his plant and gifted it to his bigger brother for Christmas. So it's kind of cool, and I would strongly recommend doing these special lessons. I'm grateful that a lot of the thought process on my part, I haven't had to spend a lot of time on it. It's already canned. We print this information off, but you can see up here where it has 73 showing. It looks as if he still has 73 special lesson assignments that he hasn't done. And the reason for that is he actually has 73 lessons, but through the Acellus program, if it was an Acellus teacher, the student would be required to submit that special lesson to the teacher. Because we're parent teachers, you know, we don't, in my house anyway, I don't require them to upload that information to close that number. So again, going back to your original question, really what it has to do is talk to your sponsor teacher, and you know, you could have that discussion. Yeah, they scored whatever they scored, but maybe it should be 5 percentage points higher, you know, on their score because they did so well with the other projects that they did. So going back to the adjustment, so I put Sawyer in tutoring mode. So now he's able to go back and click on maybe something that he has struggled with. And it didn't accept. So here's part of the problem with the system. Because I'm logged in on the same browser, I keep not being able to update his information, trying to go through his information on my browser at the same time as going through the information under my name through the browser. So it's just having a little bit of a struggle. But you're able to put it in tutor mode, and he would be able to review whatever it is that he wants to review. I'm gonna go fix that really quick, just so I don't forget to fix it back. Go back to teaching.
And we have a question about tutoring mode. If you can tell us more about it. Does it allow the students to rewatch the same videos, or does it provide additional content?
Yes, good question. So it allows the student to rewatch the same videos. What I like so much about Acellus is that, so Grant, he's my middle schooler. He is the guy who will find the shortcut, and that's the shortcut he's gonna take, whether it's gonna benefit him or not. So we found him trying to take some shortcuts with his classes. And like, for example, okay, this isn't working out for you, kid. Why is this not working out for you? So he got a 60 on the pronouns and antecedents. Okay, he didn't get it, but he tried to rush through it anyway. So what the system will do is say, oops, nope, you got to retake it. So here you can see pronouns and antecedents. You can see that right there, the little redo sign, recycle sign. He watched it a second time because he failed it the first time, made him redo the information so that he could get a better score. So the intention here is teaching the topic, not just a pass-fail sort of system. The other thing that I like about it is if he still doesn't get something, they'll put him in recovery mode. So maybe he needs it explained in a different way than what was originally presented. So they have a different video that will present the information in a different way so that he's able to get it. So he can't really progress until he does the work, which I personally appreciate. But yeah, every time this kid will take whatever shortcut he thinks he can. So another thing I wanted to share with you all, because when I first started, I had no idea, well, what's the schedule? How many steps do they need to take in a day? So I thought to myself, okay, I cannot be the only person who has struggled with this. So I am going to show you what I discovered thanks to a friend on YouTube. I love YouTube. So this parent teacher, she had the same question I did. How is it that we could come up with the schedule? I want to be able to schedule time off during the holidays. I want to make sure that, you know, we could keep the kids on track, but still be able to enjoy our lives. So there are two versions here. Here's the 2019 version that you could click on. She explains it, how it all works. I'm not going to go into detail there, but go to YouTube, Acellus Goal Tracker, and it'll pop up. So this one she has for 2020, and she's asking $10 for it. And this one is for 2019, which is the one I got. And I updated mine to make it my own. So here are my kids. Sawyer, I have his username, his password. So here are the steps. I'll go back and refresh your memory of what the steps look like. I can change this. I plug this information in. Here's the step he's at, and it's for this class, and this is how many steps he has remaining. So this I cannot change. Whatever is in black, I can't change. So the spreadsheet automatically says, okay, so he has to do at least 13 steps to be able to finish when I want him to finish. So I plugged this in for earlier this week. And based on that, I could see that he'll be done with his steps for language arts by the end of April 23rd. So you get that number. So you would see the 270, he has 270 left beginning that week. So he'll be able to reach his 277 goal by the end of that week. So let me show you, refresh your memory, what the steps look like. Okay. So when you're filling that spreadsheet in, we talked about language arts. So he's right now, he's a little further than where he was earlier this week. He's at step 290 or 292. And then I scroll down here and I could see he has 561 until the end of the course. So that's how each of these are considered steps. So that's how I know what to plug in there. Any questions with that?
There's a question in the chat box about how or do you account for the special lessons in the spreadsheet?
I don't. I did not add any special lessons. I keep, when it comes to special lessons, I look at that like it's the bonus. So there are, I'm not gonna lie, there are times we get to them and there are times I think to myself, there's no value added to this, which is the beauty of homeschool, right? Or sometimes I'll take his learning and do something completely different. Maybe I'll make a volcano with him, a baking soda volcano with him. It might not necessarily be a special lesson, but it meets what it is that he's working on. So, and again, I communicate with his sponsor teacher and let her know what he's working on, and, you know, if she has any suggestions or whatever. I'm looking at my notes here, making sure I've touched on everything. Oh, one of the things that I found important is Power Homeschool recommends that you download the app. The app is great if you're using a tablet, but if you're using a laptop or a desktop, my recommendation to you is to go through the website. It's the same information, same username and password that you'll use to plug into either, but and the app and the website will save your place. I was a little nervous about that, so I've only recommended to my kids, just go through the website, don't go through the app. The app tends to be a little more glitchy, and if you have a monitor that the kids are working from and you're plugging in your laptop to the monitor, it doesn't look as crisp. And if they're staring at a screen all day, I want them to have a good, crisp picture. So that's just been my experience. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention, so we talked about keeping them on track, making sure they are where they need to be. So I was concerned, let me show you. I was concerned that if I took them out, say for Thanksgiving and the Friday after, that their steps would be messed up because they hadn't met their, you know, maybe 15 steps for that week. The steps reset every week. So even though they didn't do it, it showed as if they were behind a couple of days, when in fact, it just resets every week. So if you've plugged it into your spreadsheet, then you should be golden. But I tend to err on the side of caution, so I constantly go back to that spreadsheet and update it. And, you know, there are days the kids want to take off. You know, they're just maxed out because they did a midterm exam in a different subject. So I don't have them do their math because I know they're not going to be successful if they try and do math on top of the exam. So you could definitely have them make up that, or you know, you could just be flexible, whatever works for you.
So in the chat box, somebody asked, how do you know how many steps they need to finish for each semester? So if in time of inputting their grade, you know they're done.
Okay, so you could see, so you would just divide it in half. You'd look at their syllabus, their step, and you would just divide it in half. So Sawyer is at 292, and so he has 561 in this. So I know that he's about halfway there.
So I'm wondering about how long it takes them to do each of these lessons. And I'm also, the other thing I'm wondering is what you guys do for school, like how many days a week, how many hours a day, like what you guys usually do.
Yeah, so it depends as far as how long it takes for each lesson. So with Sawyer, he's in elementary. He can crank through his lessons very fast. He's also, he's my little man. He was born old, I think. He's very structured. He likes to get it done and out of the way. And then I have my teenager who is in some of the harder classes, AP classes, and he took a university course this last semester. So his classes are more challenging and they take longer to go through. Not only that, he also tends to pause the video so he could take his notes, because he knows that if he takes his notes, see, he hasn't done any work today because he had a university paper due today. So but you could see, you know, he's not nearly as far along as Sawyer is, because the class takes a little longer for him to get through. But he's still on track to get through it. Yeah, so you could also see the courses are a lot shorter. So he has 271 steps in this math class, where I think Sawyer, my elementary kid, had like 600. So it appears as if there's twice as much in Sawyer's, but in fact, they're just shorter. Does that make sense? Oh, and then you asked about how we have it structured. So keep in mind, we come from brick and mortar. This is our first semester. So I'm working Monday through Friday. I'm sitting in my home office trying to accomplish my work goals. And I expect the same of them. So what I do, and my boys, they all work differently. So with Sawyer, he does best. He gets up, he has his breakfast, and then he gets to work. That's how he operates best. My middle schooler, he's the guy who, if he could get away with it, he will. So he sets his alarm so he can transition. So come noon, it's time for him to eat lunch, take an hour break, and then he has that alarm set. And after each class, he's required to come in and check with me. So for him, I found that if he's taking notes in his composition book, and he comes in after each class and checks with me, tells me about his notes that he's written, tells me about the class that he just listened to, he retains the information much better than just plowing forward, because he will do bare minimum. And I don't think he's alone, especially for that age. The thing with the Acellus, though, that I will warn you all is, if you know that your kid is like that, then you need to make sure that they are successful in their steps. They can't skate through with the C. They'll be allowed to progress with the C grade, but when it comes time to midterm, it will eat them up. So just know, having these little bites, mastering those little bites will really benefit them later on. More questions?
So I have another question, and then there's one in the chat. So the one in the chat is, can a parent remove lessons if they don't feel the child needs to cover it? And then on that same note, my question is, it sounds to me like you're managing something. You're not just letting them go do this by themselves. So kind of how much time you think you're spending on this every week?
That varies. It's going to vary depending on the kid too. How much time I spend in managing it. Again, going back to this live monitor thing, I check on that regularly. I could see if they're signed in or signed out. I could check and see what their scores are, whether they've gotten their stars today. And if they don't have their stars, I better understand why they don't have it completed. You know, like I said, Brock had a huge college paper that was due today for his final. So I didn't expect to see any stars there. Sawyer, you know, he got his stars. We just added the elementary engineering. So on average, it just really does vary. There are days where somebody doesn't get something and I have to pause what I'm doing and help them out. Sometimes if he doesn't get something and I'm in the middle of a project for work and I can't stop, I say, okay, let's pause on that for that class. We'll get to it, you know, in an hour or so. Go ahead and get started on something different. So they could even work ahead. So if, for example, you know, they're stuck in math, but they don't want to do language arts tomorrow, they can move forward in language arts and then they could double up on math once they get it tomorrow. So it is flexible in that way. And there was another question earlier about the progress. So how do we know if they've met their have your goals or how far into it they are. You could also see here with their progress on this bar, you could see that he has 293 out of the 561. So you don't always have to go back to the syllabus to see what's there. You can just hover over.
And then can you remove lessons if you feel like they're not necessary or you'd like them to move ahead?
Yeah, and unfortunately you can't. So part of the issue, I don't know if I'd call it an issue. It was a concern for me. You know, I was looking at the class offerings and you only have the sample video if they offer a sample video. So not all of them do. So I'll just like, let me select something. Yeah, so there's no sample video. I have a course description, but I don't know if it really meets where my child is at. What you can do, I don't remember if I mentioned this. What you can do is when you're looking at your kid's account, and I would recommend, again, talking to your sponsor teacher, letting them know of how your kid is doing. They do have like courses, like the core courses, language arts, math, science, and social studies. They have them assigned by grade. So that's what I did for both Grant and Sawyer. Brock, I knew what he was scheduled to take moving into the fall. So that's how I was able to line him out. But if, for example, I was concerned that social studies was too easy for Sawyer, what we could have done is we could have changed it. So I would say, you never know how a class is going to go the first couple weeks in, and that's a lot of work to invest for 2 weeks. But if they need to move up, it's really not, it's not undoable. You know what I mean? So you would just, for example, say with let me think. So, okay, say with social studies, 7 steps for social studies. It's not a lot. He's in elementary, so he still has to do, you know, a couple a day. But a couple a day for a couple of weeks, it's not too much, in my opinion. And you should have a general idea. How is this for you? Do you feel like you're learning stuff? What did you learn today? And I have to admit, I did a lot more checking in early on. I sat through lessons with them early on to make sure that they were where they needed to be. So with the social studies, I was thinking, well, maybe he could move up a grade in social studies. But then as we moved into the course, I realized, yes, he had a general understanding from 3rd grade, but in 4th grade social studies, they dig in a little deeper. So again, you could look at that. You could look at the syllabus. You just assign it to them. And they can sign up for 7 courses. They don't have to be enrolled in 7 courses. So you could sign them up and they could get a feel for whether it's a good fit or not before you're fully committed through family partnership.
And how would you compare the difficulty of these classes with other programs or with other things, other classes your kids have taken?
I would say they're no joke. I wouldn't say that they are hard. I think they are where, like 7th grade language arts. I think that's appropriate. It's where it needs to be, and it seems consistent with where my middle schooler needed to be. So it's a step up from where he was in 6th grade. And I would say the same is true for Sawyer. Now with Brock, he's in the higher level courses, so they're a lot more challenging. And you know, you can't really sign up for this course and think to yourself, oh, it's going to be an easy grade because it's all online. I just watch the video and take the test. He says they're challenging. You have to actually pay attention. Going back to what I was saying earlier about if you don't have your child get at least a B in a step, when they watch the video, they do an assignment and then they take a quiz. If they're not getting a B score, when it comes to those bigger tests, they're gonna be challenged. And yes, they have a lot of the information that they go over in the review. That seems to be the information that is first asked of them. But if they fail a test and they have to do a recovery test, then it drills in deeper. So it gets more and more complex, finding different questions. So they really have to have a mastery of it.
And then there's a question in the chat box about whether there's writing or reporting in social studies, but I'm curious about the level of writing just in general.
So again, the special lessons, they're not required. I require Grant to write because it's a skill that he has struggled with. So we focused this semester on note-taking, which has really helped him be successful in those courses. But again, the special lessons are not required. The level of writing is, you know, whatever you assign as the parent teacher and think that they need. So personally, I want those skills to not just be retained, but to be built upon. So, you know, I have, as complementary to language arts, he has to read a story and then report on it. And depending on where he's at, what he's learning, I will use the topic to help him, you know, draft his report. So whether it be an opinion piece or sequential or whatever he's going through at the time in language arts. Any other questions?
Well, I have another question. So if you sign your kids up, like your high schoolers especially, up for an AP course and you get through it and you realize it's too difficult, and you kind of mentioned you have time to change that, what is the window?
It's really up to you because again, he can take 7 classes. So if you remove him from that and then want to put him in just regular history, then that's fine. He could go into regular history, but he might have some makeup time that he needs to do. For me personally, I would say I wouldn't let it go any longer than 2 weeks. You should have a general understanding of what the pace is going to be like and whether it's too much. Because the first week you think, oh, that's going to be review. And then the second week you start getting into the meat of the topic. Any other questions? No? Well, that's all I have. Like I said, I don't know how I would have been successful had I not found this as a resource in trying to manage it all in this COVID world we live in. So I, for one, am super grateful to have it.
This has been really informative and very helpful. So
Good.
yeah, so thank you for sharing all your wisdom and knowledge with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then, you know, I'm happy to share my phone number. If anybody gets stuck on anything, please feel free to reach out to me. You're more than welcome to. And Katrina, I'll give you that contact information. You should already have it if you want to send it out to the group. That's all I have.
Well, if there's no more questions, I'm going to stop